ahead and get moving this morning. Welcome. You got the coffee, Joe. You got the message. Yeah, it's interesting. I actually got the infamous coffee mug from someone. Society for Marketing Professional Services was kind enough to send me a mug. Apparently, I'm going on live way too often right now. People are sending me mugs, but what do you do? Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to Commercial Coffee Virtual Edition again. You know, we've been at this now for 8 weeks, and I will say this is actually the 8th commercial coffee that we have done in that period of time, which is quite frankly rather exciting just to see how we've been able to flip on the flow here and kind of move with things. I will say most of the time commercial coffee, almost everybody on the line knows this, is you know, we're going out and touring different venues. We still are doing tours even as we're doing the panel discussions. We've toured 1504 Belvoir Street, Richmond Co-Housing, and next week you'll be getting a note that is Swift Creek Place. So just keep an eye out in your email for those tours. We still do want to be showcasing projects around town. The other commercial coffees I was talking about, we've actually had several in Raleigh, Hampton Roads, Charlottesville, so several different places. We're rather excited to be just excited to be sharing and talking about everything that's going on around town. For those of you on the line, there's a couple of important pieces. First off, if you are an AIA or a PE, just know that AIA and PE credits are available. You'll need to go to timmons.com and then click on virtual events under news in order to get your AIA credits. At the very bottom of that page is a form you're going to fill out that you're going to fill out to get your AIA credits. The same thing is true with our PEs in the room. If you're a PE and need a continuing education certificate, go to the bottom of that page again, fill it out, and we will get you up and online. That said, outside of that, I do want to kind of kick things off. Tim, Davey, good to have you as the moderator again this morning. For those of you that do not know Tim actually is the founder of Commercial Coffee. He founded Commercial Coffee about 15 years ago here in Richmond. Tim, we were just digesting the story the other week. You actually started at a coffee shop with a number of friends, and it grew until the point that the coffee shop could not contain it. And the decision was to go out on a construction site just to meet for coffee then, and that was the start of Commercial Coffee. So Tim, always great having you back. I'm going to hand everything over to you to kind of do the moderation and to manage us through today.
Fantastic, Tim. Tim, you and Brittany are doing a great job of keeping Commercial Coffee relevant. We have a lot of friends on the line, and 4 panelists are good friends as well. Timmons Group is very fortunate to work with all of our jurisdictions. And this morning we've got 4 that are willing to talk to us about really how real estate development has changed over the course of the last 8 weeks. So that's really our opening question for everybody is, you know, give us some opening comments about sort of how things have changed in each of your jurisdictions. And Casey Verburg, I was hoping you can start. And then Joe, we'll ask you to go next. So go ahead and give us a little bit of an introduction of what's going on in Goochland.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Casey Verburg, and I'm in economic development for Goochland County. You know, things have definitely changed a little bit. You know, obviously our buildings are closed to the public, so that's kind of given us that opportunity to kind of shift a little bit. So we actually put in a drop box in our building so that plans and things like that can still be dropped off, and we can kind of still move forward with development and things like that. So that drop box is checked probably every hour or so by staff to make sure that there aren't plans missing or anything like that. The rest of it, if it can be done via email, it's submitted via email. You know, and so we're just kind of moving forward. About probably a week or so ago, we had 10 plans come in for residential development in 1 week. So people are definitely still moving forward with their projects and still working through the development. It's just unfortunately we lose that kind of face-to-face connection. It's more done via phone and you know, drop-offs or meeting people in parking lots and things like that. But we definitely are moving forward, and same with you know, public meetings. We actually have 3 public meetings coming up in the next week that are going to be held via Zoom, and those are, we have 1 conditional use permit and 2 that are looking to rezone. You know, and so it's definitely still moving forward. We're definitely not slowing down by any means. And same for inspections. So we are, our inspectors are still getting out on sites and, you know, obviously wearing the appropriate PPE and equipment that they need to remain safe. But typically our inspectors are hitting the sites once an inspection is requested. in about 24 hours. And so it's a pretty quick turnaround for us, but we still have a lot of development moving forward. And so it's exciting to see that those projects that were underway prior to COVID haven't stopped, and they are still moving forward. And then we have new ones coming down the pipeline that are looking to kind of move forward too.
Good. So overall comments, it's sort of a pivot 8 weeks ago. The county's still open for business. And my guess is things are sort of changing and policies and procedures are probably fluid over the course of the last 8 weeks and going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know they are looking at, with the phase 2 coming in or phase 1 reopening coming in, we're looking at ways to help our restaurants out with that, the regulations of 50% capacity and of outside seating. And we're looking at unique ways of allowing them to expand their existing outdoor seating, whether that's, maybe taking up a couple parking spots or something like that. We're exploring those options to make sure that our existing businesses can open and start to really combat COVID and really start to flourish back to where they were.
Good. Well, thank you for those opening comments. It's great to see you. And we'll get back to you here with a few follow-ups. Joe, if you don't mind giving us sort of some opening remarks on how things are going in the town of Ashland.
And thanks for having me on here. Joe Topham with the town of Ashland. We also would echo a lot of what Casey said. We have remained, while town hall has been closed to the public, we've been fully staffed. We've remained open through this whole event. I would say that we also have seen a consistent volume, a normal volume of projects coming through the door. I think from a prospective project standpoint, that has even remained consistent, which we've been really pleased to see. Being a town, there are elements that are of the permitting process that are handled by our county, Hanover County. They've been doing that on schedule as well. Having everyone in the office has been helpful because it gives us an opportunity to collaborate. As you can imagine, and I think everyone's experiencing, there are challenging aspects of this whole situation that really benefit from having several minds come together. So from at least 6 feet apart, we've had some great conversations about, hey, how are we going to handle this particular issue or that? Obviously, like everybody, we've moved, a number of meetings to an online format, a Zoom format, especially with outside stakeholders. But we've overall been able to maintain consistent operation, which has been really outstanding.
Good. So I know you guys in your land development process, a lot of times you would always sort of have a staff kickoff meeting, where you could really sort of be face to face and get everybody's initial comments on projects and coaching and suggestion. I mean, has that pivoted? Is all of the plan review happening online right now? Is there any opportunity for a developer to come in and actually get feedback directly?
Well, right now it is online. We're doing, our pre-application meeting would be online, much like this, in a Zoom format, which is hard because it can be, it presents a challenge. It's sometimes things are hard to perceive when you're looking at a group of people on a matrix on your device. But we are available over the phone at any point for developers. I have met people out. We've got some picnic tables in front of town hall, and we're always happy to lay things out on that and stand apart and any consultation necessary. So I would say, that contact can still take place, and we hope that there's been no interruption in access to our team, at least.
And so this is maybe a little bit in the weeds, but so obviously some companies are set up better to host these meetings than others. Does the town actually host a meeting, or is it something the developer would have to go ahead and propose to host it and have you guys join?
We've found generally that outside sources often have great existing relationships with a web-based hosting system. Usually it's Zoom. We do have a Zoom account, so we've hosted some things on that as well. We've done some public meetings using that, but generally speaking, we kind of work off of what the applicant wants to bring to the table. Good.
Well, thanks again for the opening comments. Thanks for being here. Brett, can we ask you to talk a little bit about how things have changed in Powhatan and what you guys are dealing with?
Yeah, a lot of things very similar to what Casey and Joe said they're doing. So things certainly very different on our side internally, but trying to make the public facing side as normal and as routine as possible. So we've expanded our accepting of electronic submissions, doing more with third-party plan review, as well as accepting some virtual building permit inspections and things by video that they can do without being on site to help that. Pre-construction meetings, since those are outdoors anyways, those really haven't changed at all because they can easily space out and meet outside. Public hearings, largely cases have moved on as they usually would. Classic Granite and Marble's a big case for us that's relocating their headquarters to the county. So that one we'll be hearing next week. And that was one that we actually double advertised and expedited to try and speed them up a little bit. Some other cases we have deferred some public hearings where there's more public opposition. We have a large percent of our population is older. And as you know, a lot of those times, those are the people that come out to the public hearings. And without broadband universally in some of our rural parts of the county, our board recognizes that if we held some of those hearings right now, we'd be excluding some of those people. But we've worked with the applicants to make sure the time between now and when we do hold their public hearing isn't wasted, and we're able to, hopefully work with them and improve the case between now and then. For us, the volume, residential, looking at this month compared to last month, down about 18%, but commercial is up over 400%. Last year in April, we took in 4 commercial new permits, and this year in April, we took in 21. So, the numbers are smaller than somebody like Henrico or Chesterfield might see, but for us, that's huge. So hopefully the slowing down of the residential allows us to concentrate on the commercial a little more. But we've certainly been staying busy and trying to respond to everything that's coming in.
Is there a trend in the commercial? I mean, obviously in a good economy, we'd see an awful lot of, restaurants, and breweries and things like that, which are bustling. But what would be the trend in those 21? Is there any trend there?
It's been a little bit of everything. We had a bit of new construction on some flex space and office, number of tenant upfits going into either space that somebody had moved out of or just some space that hadn't been built out in an existing building. We have artistry apartments that Bristol are doing. So that's a large one. So it's been a little bit of everything, which I think is probably good that we don't have. And Powhatan, we've kind of always been that way, that we don't have one cluster or one sector that we're very heavy in. It's kind of spread around. So that trend seems to continue. Good.
Well, again, thanks for being here. We'll get back to you with some follow-up. Matt, can you give us some opening comments from down in New Kent? Thanks.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. So New Kent County, we're still rocking and rolling. The second fastest growth rate, as you know, the last 9 years in the Commonwealth, and that has not slowed down on the residential side. I know one of our bigger planned unit developments, Brickshire, out there at the horse track. I think there's 54 homes under construction in one form or fashion right now. Building permits are just coming in left and right, keeping our building inspectors busy. As much as my counterparts have said, drop boxes and trying to keep that public interaction as seamless as possible. We're still holding board of supervisor planning commission meetings. I've got over a 4-week span, I'll have 5 EDA meetings. So they're staying very busy, and we're shifting while we're closed. Those meetings are open to the public, but we're live streaming them all on Facebook just to allow the public to participate while staying in the confines of their home. So it's great. We've actually had a new brewery announced, our first brewery, Tallysville Tavern, that'll be coming in the fall, the New Kent Winery. Another EDA awarded a big grant to I'll put a plug in for Dr. John Caraff, a pro sports CPA. We've got about 1,100 pro athletes get their taxes done here in New Kent County. So taking it from a home-based business, going to build some Class A office space with another brewery, restaurant, and a CPA office. So those projects are still moving forward. Working with VCU, we were supposed to have a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new emergency department, freestanding ED. That kind of got bumped, but June 1, they're going to open. We're going to do a virtual ribbon cutting, which will be a little bit different. First, it'll be the first for them and the first for us. So we're doing as best we can, limited staff, rotating in and out. But I think as Brett said, just try to keep that public, the interface with the public as seamless as possible prior to the pandemic.
And so Matt, how are you communicating that information about new procedures and new approaches. If there's a developer, obviously, who may be not familiar with developing in New Kent, but they're thinking about doing something, I mean, where do they go right now? I mean, obviously, we would know to introduce them to you, but is there a way that they can go research what they should be doing?
Right. You know, and that's why it's important to keep your social media sites up to date and your websites with, you know, all the valuable information. That's really what we're relying on. And, you know, and then the plugins during the meetings, during board comments or staff reports, you know, we can update the public with any new sorts of information or procedures. So that's the way we're going right now.
Okay. Rhonda, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, very good. Thank you for joining us here on Commercial Coffee. We were just asking each of your colleagues to sort of give us a little bit of a snapshot in the last 6 or 7 weeks. You know, how has the real estate development process in the county changed, and what message would you like to get out to the real estate development community about, you know, how to proceed with moving their projects through the county process?
Well, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to participate. I would say around March 16th for about 3 weeks, other than inspections of projects that were already permitted, there was no new permitting activity. We were totally shut down. During that window, we did some things similar to comments made by Goochland and New Kent in terms of drop boxes and being able to support our constituents and our customers, not necessarily remotely because we were in the building and on site, but with the social distancing so that we were not interacting in the same personal, professional space. You know, so it was a little bit of a learning curve, and I think that learning curve was steep, but we have since surmounted it. And so now I think the only adverse impact would be our permitting process is a little bit slower. I think we will add about an additional week to our standard review processes for applicants that need, you know, their requests are time sensitive for varied reasons, financing, locks, expirations, things of that nature. For public hearings, we've scheduled those. So we have a wetlands board public hearing scheduled. We have a BZA public hearing scheduled. Right now, our planning commission agenda items don't seem to be time sensitive, and we're doing those meetings virtually via Zoom. We actually purchased Boxcast equipment and software that would allow us to do remote meetings, but we found that Zoom is working perfect. The subscription version of the Zoom meeting. So even for our Board of Supervisors meetings, that's working out just fine.
Good. Well, I'd like to ask you to comment on that a little bit on the sort of the details of it. So we obviously always are thinking both about the public perspective and the private perspective. So Casey, trying to submit something, take it through the process, obviously is one side of the equation. Your planning commission and board trying to solicit public input. Have they started soliciting public input through email yet, or taking phone calls and recording the phone calls for public comment yet? Tell us a little bit about how the public engagement is happening.
Yeah, so they've done a little bit of all of the above in order to kind of get the public comment. They also do the Zoom meeting so they can call in during the meeting and actually, you know, raise a hand and submit questions that way. I know for our EDA board meetings, you know, we're still having them in person. So there's, I think between the board members and our staff, there's about 8 of us in the room. And we just kind of monitor Zoom to make sure during that public comment period that we're not missing anyone, that people are able to submit their concerns. And a lot of the projects we have going on right now, they're not the ones that typically have a lot of comment. You know, they're just not those high profile ones. No big new residential developments. Those have all already kind of gone through the process at this point. So a lot of it is kind of one-off comments or a handful of comments as opposed to having, you know, 100 people coming out to voice their concern over a project.
Right. Matt, how about you guys at New Kent? I mean, how is the public engagement?
Yes, so we're doing, my EDA is doing a sort of a blend. Some of the meetings were virtual, others are in person. Board of Supervisors and let's start with Planning Commission. I know they had public hearings last month. This month's meeting's been canceled. But again, great, no contentious cases. Like Casey said, no big residential subdivisions or whatnot. So I know the Planning Commission, they did a call-in where, it was more of a call-in with questions. Board of Supervisors accepting letters, which are read during any sort of public comment. But the crowd, I was at the board meeting on Monday night. There were, I think I counted 5, maybe 4 or 5 citizens there. Not a whole lot, but the participation, those who were watching on the live stream, it's really engaging. I think we're actually capturing more people this way than during the in-person meetings in months past.
That's actually one of the things I'm trying to sort of pay attention to is obviously there's an awful lot of people that were used to participating, either on the pro or the con side. And now obviously people have more choices. And I'm wondering to see if we're going to see more additional participation as well. So Joe, I talked to Brett a little bit about the trends. I mean, are you seeing any real trends right now about the activity, either that maybe was going on at the start of this or maybe that's incubating now in the town of Ashland?
We've really been encouraged that we haven't seen a downward trend. I think and I don't have the specific number in front of me on non-economic development prospects, things like building and such, but we've actually had a decent flow of folks just coming through the door, well, not through the door, but virtually saying, hey, I've got a question about zoning in this area. We've dealt with some teams that are bringing some projects to us, and the projects that have been in queue have been continuing forward, whether it's a redevelopment or a greenfield development. We've been really pleased to see that. I can't point to a direct number with it because for us it's a smaller number, but it's also a consistent one. So I think we've been because we've been fully staffed and we're all here, it's been really easy to work with what's been going on, and so it's been encouraging for us looking ahead. So we don't forecast the dip as of right now.
Good. Well, I know all of you participate sort of in the economic development discussion, and obviously a lot of people believe, economic development really is us selling the region as much as anything else because the employment base sort of spreads across the different jurisdictions. So Brett, is there any particular sort of economic development initiatives or trends that you really see Powhatan being able to benefit from as the region considers competing against the rest of the world coming out of this?
I think we do, all of us as the localities around the metro region and having rural parts in all of our counties, we do kind of bring a different flavor to what the Richmond region has to offer. So that's great, and just trying to show that off more and brand ourselves that we are part of the Richmond region. I think it'll also be interesting to see what happens coming out of this. Because a lot of the outbreak and the hotspots were in more densely populated areas, if there is an interest from people to develop in more of the surrounding rural areas. I know our rates of infection have been very low. We're particularly fortunate that we don't have any assisted living facilities. We don't have processing plants. And although we do have some correctional facilities, they haven't had the outbreaks that others have. But I think that's, largely the low numbers are just because we have a lower density of population and development style. So it'd be interesting to see if there's more of a push to expand into rural areas for people that might have concern about future outbreaks or second waves and things, where the rural areas could be a safe place to invest and build. So I don't know if this is something that once we recover, we'll move on and not think about, or if that's something that's going to be lingering in people's minds, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, agreed. Matt, how about you? What trends do we as the Richmond region sort of well positioned for based on sort of your seat in New Kent?
So from an economic development standpoint, I'm going to touch on tourism. We had a strategic planning meeting yesterday, and working with Richmond Region Tourism, we all know that tourism is a huge driver in the Richmond area, and it's a different form of economic development. It's not your manufacturing plant or whatnot, but it brings the residents in, spends their money, and they leave. So I think kind of what Brett said, we are in a rural area here. Richmond as a general, it's a secondary market. As things start to unwind and people get a little bit more comfortable going out, I don't necessarily think you're you're going to see people hopping on a plane and taking their family to New York City for tourist events. It's getting in a car and driving somewhere for the day, which I think Richmond is well suited for that. And New Kent being part of that, and with our wineries, golf courses, and rivers, it's I think that tourism component, which ultimately leads to the dollar, is going to be very strong.
Good comments. That's a nice segue to you, Rhonda, as well. I know the Capitol Trail heads right through the county. Any comments on Matt's comment about tourism or other economic development trends that you see the region benefiting from your seat in Charles City?
I do. I think the largest race for the Capitol Trail has actually been postponed as a result of the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders and just this period of uncertainty. But what we have seen in the last couple of weeks, and I'm surprised, I was wondering if other localities in our region have seen it, we've been approached by defense contractors that needed very quickly storage space for recently awarded contracts for medical supply equipment, and they needed I guess what we would call turnkey facilities, and they wanted community development support in identifying properties in our Roxbury area that would facilitate that and not require permitting, essentially for just using the facilities for storage. And so for our community, 2 facilities or 2 defense contractors, different, for similar venues is significant. And so we're paying attention closely to how frequently that pattern is going to repeat itself, as well as how long-term they will be in the community.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, we've seen that trend a lot. People, we've always sort of had in the Richmond region trying to get more product on the market, whether it be office product or buildings that are ready to go. The jurisdictions who really do have buildings ready to go right now are answering a lot of those phone calls.
So, but we think that the interest is really related to the COVID-19 pandemic because it's for durable medical equipment, things of that nature that would be stored and then shipped nationally. And so it's a staging. We think it's more of a staging and logistics need.
Good. Well, let me ask if you could all touch on a little bit. A lot of the folks that participate in commercial coffee are in the construction industry. A lot of each of your jurisdictions are clients with capital projects. See if I can get you each on maybe to sort of talk about what you may see from the county or the town's perspective of the future of capital projects that may benefit some of our members. So Casey, can I start with you? Is there any discussion at the county about what might be going on in the next few months?
Yeah, so I can tell you that some of the capital projects we've just kind of completed. So I'm actually sitting in our brand new Goochland County Business Center. I think 2 weeks prior to COVID, we opened with a loose ribbon cutting. So we have actually moved our economic development office, which is a whopping team of 2, and our Chamber of Commerce into our new business center, which used to be a bank. So it's got a very cool vault. Yeah, so that was the idea behind, combining the Chamber of Commerce with economic development, kind of making a one-stop shop for our existing businesses, as well as new businesses coming to the area who are potentially looking to open. Before we were down the street from each other and it wasn't terribly far, but if you're not super familiar with the area, you're kind of bounced around from one building to the other. Now it's kind of one stop. They can meet us all here. We now have conference room space, which is fantastic, being able to meet clients and developers and things like that at our location. So that's kind of been huge for us. And then once we moved out, they're actually renovating our admin building. They're kind of doing a big development down one of the wings. But unfortunately with COVID, all of our budgets, I think everybody will probably touch on it. All of our budgets have been severely impacted, just in terms of revenue that we're seeing coming in. And so that's going to play a part in some of those projects that we see from the county perspective, just in terms of being able to do them in the next year or so. It's probably going to take, a year to 2 years to get kind of back to where we were and be able to move forward on some of those projects. From a commercial side, though, we still have our Residence Inn. It's our first hotel in Goochland County, going in right across from Drive Shack. hopefully being completed, you know, late summer. So that'll be our first hotel, which is really something exciting for us. And then we have 2 continuing care retirement communities that are currently kind of going vertical at the moment. So we still have a lot of development that is kind of going on at this point that we're waiting to see kind of finalized, and hoping to have some ribbon cuttings. And Sheltering Arms is another one that's kind of right in that notch area that's so close to being done. They have a temporary CO right now. So
Good. Well, thanks for the comment. Joe, how about the town? Is there CIP discussions yet, either being put on hold or being canceled at this point because of budget cuts?
Well, I think we have had to make some adjustments in our FY21 budget, but we actually, much like Casey, again, last year was our big year on this. Right behind me, our new town hall is going up, and we're hoping to be transitioned to that this fall. So that's underway now, and it's moving more or less on schedule. We did some renovations, really a rebuild of our municipal pool last year. So from a CIP standpoint, yes, we're also going to be seeing cuts. I think, as many of you know, our community is very much based on tourism activity in our region. Being on the interstate, we get a very large percentage of our revenues come from people stopping, whether it's to have a meal or to stay the night. So in the midst of this, we've been very focused on our interstate community, as well as our downtown community, and kind of, you know, how do we support them? This is an unprecedented challenge. No one really saw this coming, and there's no way to say, oh, well, we had a plan for this 6 months ago. So, you know, as we look to the future, we're spending a lot of time saying, what do our businesses need from us? We spent a lot of time, you know, recently just developing a program, a modest program to support our businesses that need to reopen under phase 1 or phase 2 of the governor's reopening plan. And we're willing to cover up to the first $2,000 of their safety needs, whether it's PPE, sanitization, materials, safety additions to their building, things like plexiglass, you know, shielding, anything that makes a customer or your staff safer. We've wanted to step up to the plate and help our business community with, and our town council has made that a priority. So, you know, talking about CIP initially here, for us, we're looking out at our community that's taking care of us, and we want to be positioned well to support them as we go through this. You know, we've also been, you may have heard recently, we've just begun to explore, we're in the later stages of exploring closing our western side of Railroad Avenue to allow vehicle traffic, so we can allow our restaurants outdoor seating, so you can have something more resembling the Charlottesville downtown mall there, because it looks like in phase 1 we're going to see some pretty severe restrictions remaining on restaurants, and we want to give them as much outdoor space as possible. So some things like that, we're trying to be creative, and you know, we trust that our community, like as it has done before, we're going to rebound from this, and we think this is a kind of a 1-year thing, hopefully, and we'll see where it goes, just like everybody else.
Well, that's always the balance. You know, hopefully the public improvements are complementing the private sector improvements, trying to either capitalize on or facilitate additional private investment. So even something as innovative but modest as closing, you know, that side of Railroad Street, I think can have a big impact. Brad, how about you? Can you speak possibly to really where the county is when it comes to CIP?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the catch-22 is with people not using some of these facilities, there's never a better time than now to be doing some of these projects. So some of them we have gone ahead with, so we have a number of projects still in the works, but we did hit pause on a number of other projects. I think our board's eager to continue them, but with the uncertainty of what our revenues will be like in this, it's, you know, I think it's prudent for us to do that. You know, something like $100,000 bathroom renovation, you know, if we're looking at large unemployment, you know, that's something that's nice to have, but not necessary right now. So things like that aren't necessarily must-haves right now, we've hit pause on. Again, hopefully, as the revenue picture and economy hopefully end up better than we're projecting and thinking, then we'll bring those things back online. But for now, we're just pausing on a few of the non-essential projects. But yeah, none of them, our board so far hasn't said, you know, let's scrap that. They've just said, yeah, let's pause it for a couple months and then hopefully pick it back up when the time's right.
Well, it is going to be interesting, you know, with obviously, you know, real estate being a big part of a county budget. You know, obviously the shorter, you know, this crisis lasts, the less impact it's going to have on long-term value of the real estate assets. And so hopefully we do get that quick recovery. So, you know, when we're talking about assessing and appraising buildings next year, there really isn't a really material difference, but it's sort of hard to tell. Matt, how about you? Can you speak a little bit to CIP
Sure.
and maybe what the county had going on, or the county's approach over the next 6 months?
Yeah, so the county had going on, we had planned for a third elementary school. I'm actually on the redistricting committee for that. That's an arduous process. I've learned a lot on that, but with just looking at our budget, this was a reassessment year for us. Equalized rate dropped at 6 cents, the real estate tax rate. They decided just to drop it 3 and then cut out the school. $30+ million project had to go put on hold for 1 year, which is tough. You know, I totally get it. You know, our elementary schools are, you know, 105, 110% capacity, but you know, looking just to be fiscally responsible, we're bumping that by a year. Good news is through COVID, we're doing about a 70-acre park not too far from my office here. And good thing is we were able to refinance those bonds at a much better rate. So that's going to be a positive thing that we see. If you go in and refinance, you're saving the county quite a bit of money. So that project's still underway. We got some big ones coming up. We recently rewarded a water withdrawal permit from the Pamunkey River. So you know, that treatment plant is next. It's going to be right on the heels of the elementary school. So just to make us entirely independent on our water source. So that's kind of where we're at as far as CIP.
Great. Rhonda, any comments sort of from the county's perspective on CIP? And then I'm going to ask you also to sort of comment on, I know the energy business is alive and kicking down in Charles City as well. What you might be able to talk about, you know, the power plants that are possibly underway.
With respect to our CIP, I want to talk about the current capital budget. We are right in the midst of developing, as everybody is, our fiscal year budget for FY21. And as a matter of fact, we have a public it's a public hearing tonight regarding the budget that was presented last week. But with respect to ongoing projects and activities in Charles City County, we have a couple of projects that are underway and funded by VDOT for spurs off of the Capitol Trail. We are committed to locally funding 2 projects, and so we're working with Bowman Consulting for water infrastructure implementation project in the Roxbury area, as well as a fire station in the Roxbury area. And so in and around our Roxbury Industrial Park is where our non-residential, the focus of our non-residential and industrial tax base, and we are committed to continuing to further development and investment in that area. And so what I will say about our energy projects is that the fire station that is proposed in the Roxbury industrial area, we are very fortunate as a result of it's a solar utility project with the proffers that were related to development of the solar utility property, a 5-acre site for the fire station. As I'm sure all of you are aware, that changes with respect to permitting for energy stations with respect to emissions and environmental concerns have impacted our projects, and we are culling our way along with the developers through resolution of those issues. In the interim, permitting and development review for those projects are ongoing, both of them.
Understood.
All right.
Well, I'm going to ask y'all to, as I said, you know, we have a lot of friends on the line, a lot of friends that like to invest and work within this region. So I want to ask you maybe to go ahead and look out 6-8 months and sort of tell us really what you see is going, on inside your jurisdiction, and maybe any closing comments. Casey, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the next 6 to 8 months, one thing I forgot to mention is our first mixed use development actually got approved back in February, right before kind of COVID hit, which is Mannequin Town. It's going in off of Broad Street. It's about 93,000 square feet of office and retail space, which is huge for us. Prior to COVID, our vacancy rate was at, for all sectors, was under 2%. And so when you talk about the recruitment of new businesses and things like that, we were really limited in terms of having available space. And so, the development of Mannequin Town is really going to help us with that 93,000 square feet of new space. And then I saw yesterday, it came on to CoStar, maybe it was late last week, Madarva, which is right off the notch. There's a second medical office building that's going to be going up right there as well. So we definitely still have more development coming into us. We definitely have some projects. We hope to have one announced here in the next couple of weeks, depending on when the governor and everybody is doing project announcements again. So, I mean, I think, it's definitely been a difficult time for sure. I didn't think as an economic developer that I could work from home, but that, with the benefits of Zoom and things like that, I've been able to still keep up our connections and, talk to developers and things like that and keep these projects really rolling, which is nice. I think it's just going to be a new normal moving forward. But I think once people feel more comfortable, I think Matt alluded to the tourism aspect. I think we're going to see more people staying kind of locally for the time being and trying to spend that money here as opposed to getting on a plane or a train or something. And so, once Drive Shack opens back up and things like that, I hope to see that we'll have a bigger increase in people hitting up Drive Shack and then maybe dropping over to Hardywood for some live music and keeping that money local.
Wow, it sounds like it'd be a great afternoon if we could do that.
I'll send you an invite.
Great. Joe, can I ask you for any sort of aspirational things in the town or closing comments?
Well, yeah, I'd say, as we look to the future, I think the temptation is very real for all of us to perhaps overpredict and try to draw too many conclusions from something we still don't fully understand. You read a lot of excellent news outlets that are publishing some pretty scary things about how the new normal is going to look. And I think my advice would be, I don't think we need to listen to all of that just yet. I think the next 8 months are difficult to predict. We don't fully understand the challenge we're facing right now with this novel coronavirus. So we're relying on the expertise of our partners, those around us. Experience is still the best guide for how we're going to be doing our future here in Ashland. I think as a wider region, as Matt said earlier, the Richmond region's tourism draw in particular, which brings in a lot of dollars, is one that is more reachable, I think, for many families, even in the near term as this begins to recede. And so unlike an Orlando, Florida, or even perhaps a beach community, I think we're going to see a pretty quick return to some of the things that we've been watching in the last decade as they've grown, things like sports tourism and day trips to the Richmond region. So we're pretty optimistic that the core of what makes our community run financially will be coming back online here. And of course, all of us, not just Ashland, but this whole region, the core of our communities remains strong. We've got a lot of smart women and men on this call who are going to be dealing with these challenges as we go ahead and into the future. We're all going to be joining it equally. So pretty optimistic overall that we're going to get back online here. And, we look to the future with hope.
Thanks, Joe. Brett, can I get any closing comments out of you?
I think one thing that we'll see is the businesses that are successful and thrive through this, they were able to adapt. So I don't think anybody will disagree that local government and government in general were not always the quickest to adapt. So how will we adapt with the private sector? We don't want to be a barrier, throw up red tape. I think just a simple example would be if a restaurant's having to do all outdoor seating right now, that didn't before, they might find that actually worked pretty well. People really responded to that. We want to keep doing that, but maybe their zoning doesn't allow outdoor seating. So how do we, adapt with them and not immediately become a barrier? Or if somebody started manufacturing something that they didn't before, if it works, we want them to continue doing it, but then does that run into different approvals and things? So I think we just need to make sure we're able to adapt with the private sector, because they're going to be doing things differently than they ever have in the past.
That's a great comment. Obviously, we'll lend the commercial coffee amplifier to any message you want to get out to the development community, definitely. Michelle, or Rhonda rather, I'll let you go ahead and have any closing comments, Matt, and then we'll finish with you, if that's all right with you.
Sir.
Rhonda?
So when I look at 6 to 8 months out, that would put us in about the November, January timeframe. So we'd be about midway through our upcoming fiscal year. And I think that's an excellent point to evaluate, how have things been? How well are we doing? How well have we recovered? And I also, as a parent, think about our school-age children who hopefully, will return to school in the fall, and how have the localities' efforts to address some of the needs for homeschooling, or I guess that's what we're calling it, that essentially parents are responsible for supporting their school-age children as a result of the pandemic and the stay-in-place order. And that reminds me of something that I wish I had said earlier, of an effort with DHCD in Charles City County and Comcast with the deployment of broadband infrastructure and fiber countywide to the cost of about $4 million. That will also facilitate what is being described as the new normal, that is working fairly well for everyone, and that's the ability to work remotely and work at home.
Right.
That's not an issue in our industrial area, as we have fiber resources in that area, but we're not a densely populated community, so the per unit cost to deploy fiber has really been cost prohibitive for our residential, potential residential consumers. And so that project that will be considered this evening, it's a 12-month project, we'll be 6 months in. Constituents will be able to subscribe as the infrastructure is deployed in their proximity. And so we're looking forward to that. Typically, I don't know about you all, and I've worked for a number of community development departments throughout the state. Towards the end of the year, November, December timeframe is a slower period of time. And my experience is that especially our large developers are doing proactive permitting activities, getting their projects in place for their spring, summer launch. I am hopeful that that will be our experience towards the end of this year as well.
Great, well said. Matt?
So if these are my closing remarks, first of all, I welcome this opportunity to sit around a computer desk here with my peers. So and to all those who are on everyone else, I can't see you all, but this is wonderful. So thank you for this opportunity. I think Brett really, he hit on one word, adaptation. That's key. Who knows what this virus is going to be? 6, 8 months now, will we see a resurgence in the fall? I don't know. I have one of my restaurants. I was out in the driveway a couple nights ago buying some drinks and some cake from her. She had a restaurant. Now she's out there, selling out the back of her truck. So could this be spin-off businesses? I think we all went into shock, government and businesses alike, over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and now we're adjusting now. And I think we're all learning how to work differently, how to work smarter, and maybe how to diversify our business. So if 6 to 8 months, if something does come back, we'll be better suited to handle it. Where I see New Kent County, I think with the hospital opening up, that's going to bring in a different crowd of businesses. The MOBs will follow the specialists. So I see that coming on, and I welcome our new cluster of cold beverages with our breweries. And looking around, I see everybody smiling. But it's just something different. And Joe touched on the interstate traffic. I know Ashland relies on it, as does New Kent County. I know whenever I was interviewed here, what's attractive about this small locality? It's exit 205, 211, 214, and 220. You know, we've got that infrastructure here, and we need to take advantage of it. So I think the local tourism, as we mentioned, you know, will be strong in the Richmond area, and I think we're all going to benefit from it.
Well, you guys are great ambassadors for your jurisdiction, great ambassadors for the region. Thank you for joining us today. Tim, I'll hand it back to you.
Absolutely. And a lot of these events, more so now than ever before, we are working with a lot of different associations. I mentioned the American Institute of Architects that's offering credits for this, professional engineers. I did miss that the American Planning Association, AICPs, are also offering credits for today's event. I know we have a lot of AICPs on the phone. So I tossed a note in the link there. Josh from AICP, thanks for the reminder during this. Then other than that, Tim, I'm just going to kind of reflect what you said. Great to have everybody on the call. We don't know what next month's commercial coffee looks like yet, but we will keep an eye out in your inbox for whatever the message is going to be as to what we'll be doing next month. And thank you for joining us, and thank you to our panelists. Tim, Davey, thank you. Great always to have you with Commercial Coffee.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.